from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello, welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. I'm pleased today to have with me someone who is expert actually in podcasting. So I have someone who does this, of course, better than me. Mark, thank you very much for being with me today. Can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
What's up? Glad to be here. Mark Savant here, calling in from sunny South Florida. And Mehmet, great to be here. It's pretty simple. I help thought leaders launch and automate podcasts. Pretty simple.
Nice.
Launch and automate. Yeah, I've been podcasting for about 5 years now. I run an agency that helps people to do that. We've got a ton of shows under our belt. We're playing with a lot of AI. And I think it's a really great time to be in podcasting. I get guest requests all the time. I'm getting requests to be on shows all the time because it is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful networking tools that we have
100%.
access to.
100%. Let's start by this question, Mark. Now, of course, podcasting is not something new, but it started recently to become one of the, let's call it, mainstream marketing, networking tool for even corporate, for entrepreneurs. Now, from your experience, why thought leaders who want to make a kind of a presence and, make their voice heard everywhere, why they should consider podcasting?
Well, we've kind of moved outside of that early adopter phase of podcasts. It's starting to become the mainstream way that people are getting information. Tucker Carlson left Fox, and now he has basically what I would call a podcast on Twitter, right? So we're just seeing this mass adoption of podcasts because people are starting to open their eyes and recognize that this is actually where big names are at. This is where all the eyeballs are at. So I think as more people become disillusioned with the big mainstream corporate media and more people are listening to podcasts for information and for entertainment, people are saying, well, maybe I need to get into this game. And I definitely don't think it's too late. I think the other benefit, there's a lot of benefits, but the other thing I think that's happening, Mehmet, is historically, social media was a good place to transfer ideas. But social media has become all about clickbait. It's about, can I keep someone watching this for 3 seconds? Like if I can get it for 3 seconds, I've won. Like 3 seconds, it's pretty hard to get across an idea. And so I think as we see the evolution of the internet and of social connectivity, people are recognizing that podcasting is a powerful way to deliver ideas that take longer than 15 seconds to deliver.
Yeah, 100% true. And people are always looking for alternative media and mediums, I would say, to get information, knowledge, learning, and also to know what's happening around. And, for me also, it's the same journey. I tried listening to podcasts back in the days, I would say, when they were very new. But I returned back to listen to podcasts, before the pandemic in 2019, actually. And then, it became my, main source of information for many topics, because a lot of things we hear in the podcast, we don't see it everywhere else, I would say. Now, let's say I'm a thought leader, and, I want to start podcasting. Is it something hard to do?
Well, I mean, getting good at anything is going to be difficult to do, but, I don't think it needs to be complicated. There's simple things that need to occur. And that's really what I try to focus on when I'm working with clients is, let's do the simple things right. Let's get better. I mean, think about it. The first time you walk into the gym, you're not going to be bench pressing 300 pounds, right? You have to work into that. You have to go through some learning struggles, but it's pretty simple. I eat well and I keep lifting, right? So what I try to do is make it simple. But what I love about podcasting is how accessible it is. This isn't a thing where you need some massive studio, you need all this complicated equipment. I have a lot of equipment now, but that's because I've been in the industry for a while. If you can do a Zoom call, you can have a podcast. And I think that's what I try to stress with people. It's not that complicated. If you can do a Zoom call, if you can host a Zoom call, you can leverage a podcast as a powerful business building and networking tool.
Yeah. Actually, this is maybe like it's a coincidence you mentioned Zoom, because the way I started the podcast, first, I think I complicated, the whole thing. And I was thinking, yeah, I need to buy proper equipment. Maybe I have to go rent a studio and all this. And then I figured out, like in business, you bootstrap a business, right? So you just start with anything which is available for you, which basically can be your laptop, even your mobile phone. And then I started recording my first few interviews using Zoom. And then, once, I start to feel myself more comfortable, I upgraded myself. I started to use, StreamYard mainly for recording. I upgraded my mic, and actually I have my eyes on another microphone now I want to get, because, all the time I need to get it better and better and better. And this is like, it's a nice journey to be on. So 100% on this, Mark. Now, from, I get these questions myself, and sometimes I ask it. From your experience, like, what is the best, I would say, way to decide whether you go, for example, on a monthly podcast, weekly podcast, daily podcast? Like, what are the factors that people need to consider to decide on the frequency?
Well, listen, just like with any business, it's important to have a vision of where you want to go. And understanding what your time allotment is important as well, right? Most of us are building businesses, or we have jobs, or we have families, right? So you want to be realistic with your expectation, right? How many people know someone who, it's New Year's Eve, I'm excited, I got my New Year's resolution, I'm gonna gain muscle, I'm gonna hit all these goals, let's go, we're gonna hit it hard, and they're all fired up and they go after it, and like 3 days later, it's January 4th, and they're like, they're just back to their old habits. And so when I think of podcasting, I wouldn't typically recommend doing a daily podcast if you're brand new to the space, because it'll be very easy to burn out. People do underestimate how much time and effort goes into a podcast, which again is a big problem that my agency solves. We help you launch it, and we help you automate it, so it takes as little time as possible. And like I said, we do that with a combination of AI integration and with human power. So I don't recommend daily if you're brand new, but I don't recommend monthly either, because then you're just not putting the proper habits in place. You're not showing up enough to actually stand out in somebody's mind. So my recommendation is a weekly episode is what I typically recommend. So you can put the weekly habits, the daily habits in place that need to happen. At minimum, though, I think a bi-weekly, every other week, is kind of where I'm looking at as far as the minimum for a practical podcast. Now, of course, there's exceptions to that. I know the editor-in-chief over at Entrepreneur Magazine, and he posts one episode a month, but it's highly produced. They're putting in tons of effort, tons of research, lots of B-roll. It's very highly produced. So that's kind of a different thing. But for the average CTO, the average business owner, the average person who's trying to get the most value from the bang for their buck, weekly or bi-weekly is my recommendation.
Okay. Is there any sweet spot on the length of the episode? How long it should run?
Well, that depends too. This is one of the most important things about launching your podcast is understanding, who am I speaking to? What do they want? What do they need? What does their daily life look like? Do they have a commute to and from work? When are they listening to the show? So, obviously there's shows like Joe Rogan that can run 3 hours plus. And there's certainly a space for that. I think there's a lot of value in shows like that. I don't listen to a lot of Rogan, but I recently was going through a move. I'm moving boxes. I'm just like doing a lot of grunt work. And I was like, I'm just going to listen to some of these Rogan episodes because they help me pass the time. If I'm a trucker, if I'm driving a lot, if I'm going to be doing long commutes, Rogan makes sense because I can listen to a whole episode throughout the course of a few hours. But I think that's kind of that's not where most shows are going to be. I think for most shows, you probably the number is 22 minutes because that's the average commute in the United States. I actually go shorter than that with the After Hours Entrepreneur, and I've tried all sorts of different lengths. So most episodes of the After Hours Entrepreneur, which is now a globally ranked 1% podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. My episodes are about 10 to 15 minutes long, even for interviews. They are super, super tight. And the reason, Mehmet, that I did that I reduced it, because I used to be at around an hour long, and I brought it down to about 10 to 15 minutes, is because I recognized that when I was pitching people on listening to the show, if I said, listen to this episode, it's about 10 minutes long, people be like, oh, okay, I'll listen to that. I can listen to that. But if I told someone, hey, check out this episode, it's 55 minutes long, people are like, oh, okay. And they would like scratch their neck and like look away, right? It was too much of a time commitment. So, I recently released an episode with Patrick Bet-David. It's about 8 minutes long. It's super tight. It's super packed in. And people have really responded to that episode. So I think, in a lot of cases, less is more. I like to get to the meat. I don't like to beat around the bush. I've tested out, let's go into your whole backstory and let's flesh out all these different things. But, for the entrepreneur, where time is so valuable, it's our greatest asset. I just want to get right into the meat. Skip the foreplay. Let's dive right in. And that's kind of where I'm at. So again, I know that's a little bit about beating around the bush on these different examples of lengths. But, I think a lot of it is understanding who you're speaking to and what is your actual goal with the episode. Where do you actually trying to accomplish with each episode?
Yeah, that makes sense. Just on a note, and people might say, Mehmet, how come like you maybe know the answer and you did exactly the opposite of what Mark said? So I'm fine. So when I started, I was doing daily, but I was not doing interviews. I was doing solo podcasts, which it's between 7 to 12 minutes. And then when I started the interview, I kept doing solos, and I kept doing 7 days a week. And as you said, yeah, it's a lot of work, but because maybe I'm enjoying it, maybe I should have been a podcaster from long time ago. So I'm still doing now after, I think it's 6 months now. So I'm still doing daily. I stopped weekends, of course, because, no sense. And I stopped solo as well, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, of course, and now this is the question I would ask you, because I would not say what I'm doing. So Mark, how we can leverage technology like AI in podcasting?
Wow. There's a lot of different ways. And now, but before we move into that, though, I do want to point out that idea of doing those short solo episodes. I think that they are very underrated. The majority of people, when they think podcasting, they're thinking, I'm going to interview people. And there's a strategy you can go through there. You can use it as the top of funnel, as a way of generating leads. I say, this is the perfect client for my business, or this is the perfect capital investor for my business. I'm going to start by leading with value. I'm going to invite them on the podcast. I'm going to show them a great experience. I'm going to convert that into a potential sale. So that's one strategy. But this idea of doing solo, very short episodes where you teach something or you refine your storytelling is very valuable, is very valuable. So I would encourage people not to undersell it. Russell Brunson, when he was building ClickFunnels, which is a massive marketing company, on his way to work every day, he would pop open his phone. He would use, at the time, Anchor. It's now Spotify for podcasters. And he would just record a quick podcast in the car on his way to work. That was a podcast episode done. I actually created a podcast brand new. I've been doing this for half a decade, but I recorded a podcast brand new on Spotify for podcasters, sitting in the parking lot waiting for my kid to get out of school. So I think, again, those solo episodes, there's a lot of value in those. Moving to AI, and I just want to clarify that, because I think I really like what you're talking about in the solos. Moving into AI, there's a ton of different things that you can use AI for. Chat GPT is obviously very, very powerful. I could give you some examples there. There's a lot of powerful video editing and clip creating softwares that are out now. I think for me, one of the most is an agency owner, some of the most powerful tools revolve around converting audio into text, because typing and writing is a very laborious process. It's also very expensive to outsource, so I think those are some of the great places to start are with the editing, the text creation, research and development, strategy. I think these are some of the great ways you can leverage AI.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned some of the tools that I use. So, and of course, for me, it's like, again, and I'm doing kind of, if you want to call it, build in public, as they say. So build in public is a movement actually usually in entrepreneurship where people build their products, which is a software, in public in front of everyone. So I decided to build the podcast in public, and I'm discovering these tools every couple of days. A new tool comes up, I test. If I find it it's suitable for me, yeah, definitely. And now, with, in addition to Chat GPT, with the other tools I'm using, wow, like I'm saying, I couldn't do it alone without these tools, because they save tons of time. Let's forget about money, but again, time. Like what need someone to do it in 8 hours or more, one full day? It's done like in minutes, 2-3 minutes. Boom, you have everything you want to do. And really fascinating, and making actually podcasting much easier, I would say, right?
It's unbelievable. And most people have no idea that these tools are available, or they think that they're too complicated. And, again, I teach that in my agency, but just on YouTube, if you follow Mark Savant on YouTube, when we find tools that we really like and that we're using, I'll give the build in public. I love that concept. I'll break down, this is how I'm using this tool. This is exactly how you can set it up in your agency. I'll give you an example. That I've been playing with. I'm still working on it and tweaking it, but this concept is really powerful, of combining automation with AI.
Oh,
once you start automating AI, then you start to move quickly, right? So, the OpenAI software, which is basically the AI language that creates Chat GPT, can be linked to Zapier, can be automated with Zapier. Zapier being an automation tool that connects softwares that don't normally communicate. Okay. And so I'll give you the process, a very cool process for creating show notes. As soon as you finish recording your episode, you open up a Google form. Okay. Google form. And then you'll answer miscellaneous questions in your Google form, stuff like guest name, their business, bio. I'll also include my top takeaways from the episode in there, links that the guest has already shared with you. And then after I type that and I submit it, Zapier is going to send it over to Chat GPT. And because I filled out certain entries and criteria and prompts into Chat GPT will write out the entire podcast description for me. It'll open up a brand new Google folder where I've kind of manage everything in Google. And then it will write out that entire description inside a brand new Google document inside that folder. It's all automated. So when I'm ready to go ahead and post that episode to my podcast host or to YouTube, I already have the description. It's already been written out. It's already done. And then my team goes in on the back end and they clean it up. They add different things. But it's this quick process is unbelievable. It'll change your life. Learning how to automate Google Forms. You can do this with calendars like Calendly as well. And
right.
Any type form, anywhere where people are inputting answers to questions, you can automate that with ChatGPT to use that intelligent copywriting method onto automation, which there's all kinds of things you can do this for. You can use this process for, and really your mind is the only limitation. And if your mind is limiting you, you can just use ChatGPT and ask it for ideas.
You read my mind, Mark, actually, because while preparing, I saw the video you posted on YouTube. You were talking about this, and actually it's a coincidence because I think last week, I didn't show the guys what I did because I I left it for another time. But what I showed in that video is I built kind of a CRM for podcasters where you can put the guests, right? And once you put the bio and what topics you want to discuss with your guest, of course, using an automation tool like Zapier or like Integromat, which is now Make, you can ask Chat GPT to prepare for you some questions, which you can tweak later. And actually, someone reached out to me, and he's not in the podcasting domain. He's actually working in sales. And when he saw the video, he told me, actually, I always tell my team that think to ask questions, same as a podcaster ask his guests. And I said, wow, I didn't even think about it. So yeah, like there's no limits when you put, it's like I say, you put the rocket fuel in the car when you mix AI with automation. Like this is what happens, 100%. Mark, one thing we talked maybe a little bit in the beginning about it, but we talked about how podcasting help you in sales and growing your business. And we mentioned networking. Can you like a little bit shed some light on that area a little bit about network building using podcasting?
Oh, gee. Well, I mean, podcasting gives you access to people that you wouldn't normally have access to. Just a couple weeks ago, I had James Altucher join my pro group, and we had a pod. So we did, the first half was a one-on-one interview. And then the second half, I let members of my pro group ask him questions as well. Now, James is not the type of guy you normally get access to. He's worked with big people like CEO of HBO. He's written 25 books. He's the founder of 20 different businesses. Very, very widely respected. Brought him on, was able to have face-to-face time, had a really compelling conversation about AI, the future of business, the future of work. Super, super interesting. You can listen to that on the After Hours Entrepreneur. Or you can listen to that on the James Altucher show, because he enjoyed the conversation so much that he and his team took that episode and shared it on his podcast. And he gets 1 million downloads a month.
Mm-hmm.
So just by having that podcast, not only have I connected with a major thought leader like James, and now we're on a first name basis, but I'm also going to be reaching potentially millions of people that are listening to the James Altucher show. I have people that don't listen to the After Hours Entrepreneur reach out and say, Mark, I love that episode with James. And now I've gotten new meetings. I've got new connections on LinkedIn. I've got people that are scheduling on my calendar that I normally wouldn't have had access to. They're going back into my back catalog of episodes of my show and listening to more episodes. And so it's just, again, when you go into these conversations leading with value, and when you're good at what you do, as because you practice, you flex that podcasting muscle, you have the vibe, you have a unique way of talking and engaging with people. That's just a simple example. And that just happened in the past 2 weeks. I could give you dozens of more examples of how podcasting is a powerful networking tool, but that is something that's bearing fruit already. And I never would have had the chance of connecting with someone like James if I didn't have a podcast. But because I have the podcast, now I'm accessing potential millions of people that I wouldn't have had access to before.
100%. And, like I didn't reach to get to that level yet, I would say. But yeah, I started to talk to people, at least that I want to talk to. And the beauty of it is, if you do it the right way, I mean, you take care of your guest, you establish this rapport or relationship with them later. Actually, they will start to refer other guests to you. And the beauty of it, and, like, maybe, I want to mention this because people think that, yeah, I would do a podcast because it will be for me kind of a sales funnel. And they think about it just from a sales perspective. And I've seen people done it like this way, and it didn't work well with them. So the way I went out, I said, no, actually, I'm on a mission how I can bridge the gap between technology and business, between startups and, again, technology, and get the know-how to everyone by getting people on the show. And I never thought about it as a mean to generate leads, right? And because I did it this way, what started to happen is doors started to open for me. Now I'm talking to a lot of people, actually marketing agencies reaching on behalf of very reputable people, asking me, can X be on the show? Oh yeah, pleasure. Do you charge? No, of course no. People think that I take charge for podcasting and hosting. No, I don't take anything. I'm doing this really as a mission to spread knowledge. And really, guys, this is for people who think, should I start a podcast? Again, maybe we are returning to the previous um, question. Yeah, like it will increase first your authenticity as a person. And second, it will grow your network. And as they say, your network is your net worth, right? So I agree with you, Mark. And I'm very impressed also by the work that you have done, because I had the chance to listen to a couple of the episodes also as well. So perfect. And congratulations again on this. You've been like in this sport longer than me. So I'm the newbie guy here.
Well, there's not a lot of things intuitively correct, because the podcast is and should be a sales funnel, right? You're spending a lot of time. You want to make sure that you're getting a return back. It takes time. It takes money. The problem, I think, that you're talking about is people think, I'm just going to create this sales funnel. I'm just going to sell everybody.
Yes.
People don't want to be sold to. So you need to lead with value. I had an experience the other day where this guy invited me to be on his podcast, and I said, sure. When I show up for the interview, it wasn't him. It was a girl that was on a basically recording on a potato. It was just her video was terrible. She had no background. It was just wasn't thought out. And she said, oh, you're going to be my first podcast interview ever. And I'm thinking to myself, who the hell are you? And she's like, yeah, we're starting a new podcast. It's going to release in 3 months. I'm like, I agreed to be on this podcast with this guy. And who are you? And it was just part of a sales funnel. And after the podcast, then I was in their email, and they had me in this email nurturing campaign with all these long texts trying to sell me on a $20,000 program. And it was like, this is not the right way to do it. Now, I was actually fascinated with it, because, at the same time, I can appreciate building out scalable systems to generate income. I get that, but this was done all wrong. And so I went through the entire process just to kind of see what it looked like, and to see the things that I wouldn't want to do personally, or I wouldn't want to do with clients. So anyway, to your point, there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to do it. And that's why, working with the right people, experimenting with the right things is a way to make sure that you actually do it in a way that builds your brand equity, as opposed to tarnishing your brand equity.
Yeah. So just to clarify for the audience, I'm not saying that I don't want to have income or something. Like, don't misunderstand me. But what I'm saying, of course, I built a presence as a thought leader, and of course, this is because I need to do business. But what I wanted to say, like, don't put the sales / business side as a priority on the value that you are delivering, as you said, Mark. So, and of course, this is again what I'm telling is, it opened doors for me to go and do consultation for people who I was referred by some of my guests, right? So, and nothing wrong with that, because everyone needs to have his business, grow his business or her business. So nothing wrong with this. But what I'm saying, be on a mission, and you need to find, as they say, your purpose, your why you are doing this, why you are podcasting, what's your end goal of that. So
deliver value first. The more value you give, the more you get back.
Exactly.
On the idea of charging for guests too, I actually do have a guest charge. It's not a large charge. I think a couple $100s right now, but I had to do that because I'm getting so many guest requests. I get probably 24 guest requests every single week, 2 to 3 dozen guest requests. And I just had no way to filter through all the guest requests. So I have people fill out a form. I have guests fill out a form, but I say, listen, if you're willing to share the load of the production cost, if you're willing to value, I put a lot of effort into building up my show, so people just want to take, they're like, oh, I want to get on your show so I can get business from your listeners. I'm like, okay, cool. No, I get that. But I actually do I do generate, a decent amount of income just through guests paying to be on the show. I've gotten as much as $500 a guest before. So there's, and that's the thing that people I don't think also understand is, like, now that podcasts are becoming so powerful, and so popular, you're starting to see big money going on behind the scenes. Like anytime you see like two big names get together on a podcast, just know that there's tens of thousands of dollars exchanging hands behind the scenes between the guests, between the host, and between sponsors. There's tens of thousands of dollars that are exchanging hands, and that is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Once you start to see the numbers that are exchanging hands for these podcast interviews, you're like, whoa, that's crazy. So anyway, I know a lot of people are averse to charging guests to be on their show, but in my opinion, if you're spending the time, I've spent tens of thousands of hours. If you're spending the time to build the show, if you spent the time to build the audience, if you have the credibility, if you're spending literal money to produce the show, I don't have any problem with charging guests to be on the show.
Nothing wrong, because when you do it as a profession, nothing wrong, because as you said, you're paying for production, you're paying for, actually, think about it, guys. Like, will any radio station accept to put an ad for you for free? Of course, no, right? So think about it this way. And there is nothing wrong with that of, getting income. I had my first sponsorship like 2 weeks back. But I made it short on purpose because I said, I cannot commit with you guys. And because they had like limited budget. So I said, guys, I will read one time on one episode and I will put you in the description for 1 week. That's it. And of course, why I'm accepting sponsorship, because it's costing me money, which is I'm, putting from my own money actually, right? To produce this. I don't have a production crew behind me. I'm by my own. Maybe in the future, if this show goes to somewhere else, and this is all depends on the audience, how they will want me to resume or stay. And actually, I did a survey a couple of months back, maybe 2 months back, and everyone said, keep it coming daily. Because I asked actually for feedback. Do you want them to be weekly, twice a week, or I didn't ask for like monthly. I just asked 2 times a week, 3 times a week, or 5 times a week, or once a week. And everyone, majority, they said, we want it every day, every single work week. We want it. And then I kept it this way. So, and again, nothing.
I think the daily is probably optimal, because then you're part of someone's daily routine. They're like, oh, I can't wait to listen to the CTO show. What's the new episode today? Lots of value there. The key is, can you keep it interesting? Because, if you're just releasing new episodes every day, there might be a point where you're like, I don't have anything interesting to say, but I'm still going to record an episode. So I record multiple episodes every week. I probably average 3 episodes a week. Because I record impromptu episodes when I have something interesting to say. When something happens, it's interesting. I want to share, so, the more episodes, the better, as long as you can keep it interesting.
Right. Yeah, actually, you're right. Because when I was doing the solo ones, I honestly speaking, I don't have nothing to hide from anyone. At some stages, I was starting to feel, okay, maybe I will start to get to get out of things to talk about.
Right.
Yeah, but I was lucky enough to have some breakthroughs here and there that I write out, and I recorded maybe 5-6 minutes, putting my comments on what's happening. But yeah, I said I need to shrink, the solo numbers. So first I went from all solos, then I started to do 3 solos, then 2, then now I'm not doing solos anymore. Maybe I will come back. I'm not sure if I feel there's something I need to personally talk about without guests. I will do this as well. No issues.
The other, just as a side note, the cool thing, the one thing I think is interesting about that point, Mehmet, is stuff happens in our lives every day.
Right.
So by recording more episodes, especially the solo episodes, it helps train that muscle of something, of becoming a better storyteller. Like, how do you take that mundane thing that happened during the day and make it a story that's interesting and actually can teach a concept? Because the better you are at storytelling, just the more interesting of a podcast you're going to have, the more compelling of a public speaker you're going to be. Storytelling is what moves people to action. So I think that's I think that the solo episodes, again, I think it's something that's often overlooked in production shows.
Yeah, that's true. Mark, like something we mentioned a couple of times, and for people who are interested to make maybe a mainstream way of getting their incomes, we mentioned a couple of ways to monetize podcasts, but what you can tell us in general about how to generate revenue from podcasting?
Well, a lot of different ways. I think the best way to generate revenue from a podcast is have a product or service that's valuable that you can sell. And then the people that listen to your show, they can move to buy that product, or the guest that you're bringing on can go to buy that product, or the people that are networked with that guest can go buy that product or service. That's the best way to do it. Probably the worst way to generate income from a podcast is thinking that you're just going to land sponsors and make a lot of money through sponsors. It doesn't work that way. I brought on a client recently, and we were going through the onboarding process. And I said, well, what's your goal with this show? And she's like, well, by the end of the year, I want to make $100,000 and I want to have 1 million downloads. I'm like, that's that's ambitious. That maybe if you're a Michelle Obama, you can pull that off, but the vast majority of people are not. You need to, in order to make that happen, you need to be a celebrity. You need to be a household name. You need to be like a Logan Paul. You need to already have some juice behind you, right? And I'm not saying that you'll never get there, but nobody knows who you are. And there's 3 million podcasts for people to listen to, which, by the way, isn't that many. When you think about 8 billion people on this planet, there's only 3 million podcasts. In fact, a majority of those, about 70 to 80% of those, aren't even being actively produced. So in actuality, there's only about 500,000 podcasts that are actually being produced regularly. So if anyone's thinking the market's saturated,
it's not.
I don't think so. But, again, I think the best way to generate income is to have some sort of offering, preferably that's high ticket, right? That costs $1,000 plus, $5,000 plus, so that you can leverage the podcast as a marketing tool to show up on people's LinkedIn profile, to show up on Instagram, to keep showing up, to keep reminding people that you exist, to generate relationships, to develop processes on the back end to nurture that relationship, to develop referral programs that incentivize referrals to buy your product, and then to have a good delivery system on the back end so that you can scale the delivery of that product or service. So that's the way I think that's the best way to monetize your show from day one.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, because Mark mentioned something regarding sponsorship, especially for new podcasts, first you need to have like certain number of downloads per episodes so you can get people to sponsor. And then don't think that these guys pay thousands of dollars. So probably your first sponsor would pay maybe 3 digits, right? So that, and would be maybe for, I don't know, like not per episode. Maybe you need to do an agreement for one week if you do a couple of episodes per week, or maybe 2-3 episodes if you do bi-weekly, something like this. And it's not that big. And if you just want, actually, Mark, let me ask you this. So, of course, there are the big names out there, like you mentioned, Rogan, Tim Ferriss, there are a lot of podcasters out there. How long usually, if everything is done properly, how long it would take to reach to, let's say, to be reasonable, 10,000 downloads, and then let's say 100,000 downloads?
Oh man, I can't answer that question because there's a lot of factors, right? So I don't know if you've watched this movie on Netflix. There's a documentary called about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Fantastic documentary, really, really good. And he and I love this fact is to be successful, you need 3 things. You need to have you need to find something that you're very talented. You have natural talent and you're good at it, right? You need to be you need to enjoy it, and people need to value it. Right? You need those 3 things. If you're missing one of those 3 components, you'll never hit 10,000 downloads, right? So, I don't think podcasting is necessarily for everybody, but that's why I don't think it's really about how do I get to 10,000 or 100,000 downloads as fast as possible, right? It's it's about putting those processes in place, the systems in place to make sure that you're able to milk the cow as best as possible, right? How can I get as much value as possible from this endeavor? So, as my show approaches 500,000 downloads now, I just have become much more of a believer in that, that, focusing less on the downloads from day one and focusing more on how can I, what's my vision and how can I achieve the goals from this show as quickly as possible is what I look at. And just on the advertising question as well, I just want to point out, if people are new and kind of trying to figure this out, advertising dollars are delivered, generally speaking, based on your CPM, your cost per milli, which is basically, you get paid per 1,000 downloads. And some categories of shows generate more money, but just as a rule of thumb, you're probably expecting it somewhere between $30 per 1,000 downloads. That would be on the high side, right? But when I'm looking at potential sponsors and when I'm advising people on this, you don't want to look at, if someone comes to you and says, how many downloads do you get per episode? An advertiser, you don't want to just sell the downloads per episode. You want to sell the downloads per episode, the views on TikTok, the views on Instagram, your email list, the value of getting the backlinks from your website, right? So you want to look at the whole picture. You sell the whole package. You don't just sell one piece. You don't just sell downloads. You sell the whole package if you're looking for sponsorships.
Yeah, that's great. As we approach the end, I have my very famous question mark. Is there anything that you wished I asked you, and what your answer would be?
Wow. Anything that I wish you asked me? So I think that in a lot of cases, one of the mistakes that I made in building up my podcast was wanting to just do it all on my own, thinking I could do it all on my own, right? And it took me, I think, a lot more time to build what I built today with the After Hours Entrepreneur, with the podcast agency, by wanting to learn it all on my own. I spent at minimum $50,000 to $60,000 in hiring and building systems and firing and finding a new person and creating different shows to try to find my sweet spot. I spent so much time, Mehmet, building systems that didn't work and tearing them down and rebuilding them and figuring out payroll and how to bill and all this stuff. Whereas it would have been a lot easier if I had just found someone or some community that it was a good fit, that jived with me, and I could essentially pay them or contribute in some way to learn faster, right? And I'll give you another just a perfect example of this. My wife and I, my family, we recently moved, and we came to the agreement that we were going to lease out our old home. And I said, cool, we're going to lease out our old home. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to use Chat GPT. I'm going to use Google. I'm going to develop out this system to rent it out. And then as I started to dive into it, I recognized there's a lot to this, and there's a lot that I can mess up. I need to learn contracts. I need to learn listing. I need to build up my network of realtors. Maybe I could find someone that'll put it on the MLS. I need to make sure I'm screening properly. I need to make sure I have the right invoicing system, and what is the criteria on the application. And as I started to dive in, I'm like, this is immense. And I don't want to give someone $3,000 to lease it out. But for me to learn this, it's going to take me 100 hours.
Right.
So would I rather spend $3,000 and get it done? Or would I rather spend 100 hours and try to learn it myself? And, we've hired a realtor. We've already gotten offers. I'm so much happier that I hired someone that's been in the business and is an expert instead of trying to learn it all on my own, So I think that's the piece of advice would be. And I'm not telling you to go out and hire someone for $20,000 to teach you how to do podcasting. I think that's unnecessary. But, finding a person or a community that can then help you get somewhere faster is something I would recommend.
Yeah, that's really. I need that's something again, and the audience, maybe the people who follows know that I am very transparent and I don't like to hide anything. I need to learn this, Mark, myself. So it's a confession, let's call it, to have the power of accepting that sometimes you need to do delegation. I do delegation in other stuff, actually. I start to do a lot of delegation recently. And like, you free your time, you start to focus on the thing that really matters and, what can bring you income, peace of mind, and so on.
There's value in learning the hard way, but it takes a lot longer, and I do, it's important to me that I want to see more people podcasting, selfishly because it improves the value of my value in the world, but selflessly because it's going to help you build your own network and your own systems and your own habits and your own income. So, it's a win-win situation. And so of course, at marksavantmedia.com, it'll show you like, my offers through my agency. I also lead a pro group called the After Hours Entrepreneur Pro Group. Right now, it's only $50 a month, although I'm increasing it up to $79 a month in the next couple of weeks. But that's just a really powerful place where I can help give people the tools that they need, give them access to people they wouldn't normally have access to, at an affordable rate. I know people tell me, Mark, you should be charging $250 or $500 a month, and these high ticket gurus, but I just don't really. I would rather under promise and over deliver. So, that's one of the programs I built out to help people kind of get started and learn these digital marketing, these digital business systems at an affordable rate.
Beautiful. Actually, what we will do, the links that Mark mentioned, they will be available for you in the episode description, right? Whether you are listening on your favorite podcasting app or watching this on YouTube. So you're going to see this in the description. Don't miss out. And I really advise you guys to go and listen to Mark's podcast. Really cool stuff over there. Highly, highly advisable. This is from my podcasting. I can tell you this. Really, I learned a lot, and I think I need to catch up on the previous episodes as well, Mark, with the because you have I think, how many episodes you have in total?
We're approaching 350 episodes. I've had some amazing guests. Everyone, if you're into podcasting, Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas have been on the show. I just had Jordan Harbinger on the show. There's people like James Altucher, Patrick Bet-David, David Meltzer, Chris Doe. I mean, just Jasmine Starr. There's a lot of really great episodes. I'm very proud of the episodes that we have built.
Fantastic. And by the way, guys, majority of, as mentioned by Mark, majority of the episodes, they are not that long. So, some of them, they are 10 minutes, some of them 20 minutes, but really you can, if you are, commuting, or maybe you are in the airport, you can pass the time. And really the beauty of them, they are all, as Mark mentioned, very good guests, reputable guests, and cool topics also discussed on that podcast. Well, Mark, thank you very much for being with me today. It's an honor for me. And as I end every episode, guys, if you have any question or feedback about this episode or the show in general, I like to listen to feedbacks. I like to have your opinion. And if you have any feedback, question, you know how to reach out to me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Twitter, and my email is also available for you. If you are interested to be like Mark today, a guest, reach out. We can figure it out together, decide on a time, date, and then we can do the recording. And thank you very much for being loyal audience as well. And don't forget, tell your friends, family, colleagues about the show. I'm trying as much as possible to bring guests that are adding really great value, whether you are an entrepreneur, startup founder, you are in tech and thinking about doing something different as well. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll meet the next episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.